important questions. You mentioned in your introduction your fascination with the subject, but obviously it's a very long journey to get from being fascinated with something to where we are tonight. Could you tell us a little bit about how long the journey took, and particularly the research that you did, because I know that you did a massive amount of research.
I would say it took about 3 years to get to the point where I felt like I was in a position to be able to write the script. So 3 years of reading and meeting people and interviewing and legwork and meeting people who knew the Duchess or the Duke, watching every documentary ever made, going to archival libraries, doing tons and tons of research, meeting anyone who had a letter, who owned a letter, who had a connection to somebody who had a letter. I did read an enormous amount of letters because in spite of all the books that had been written about Wallis and Edward VIII and the royal family and this period of time, I found that reading the letters was the most insightful way into the story and the best way to get to know them, because when you write letters to somebody, you don't know that someone else is going to read them, just the person you're writing the letter to. So you get to have an insight that you wouldn't have by reading a book that someone's writing knowing that other people are going to read it.
And I mean, I think it's very refreshing as someone who grew up in this country and was, told us that the history of the relationship, and, we were all sort of given the story of Edward who gave up everything for her. Telling it more from her point of view and, giving us some insight into what she gave up, is that something that evolved during the research, or were you always kind of more interested?
I think I was drawn into the story by first trying to understand why a person in such a powerful position would give up something like that for love. It seems like such a huge sacrifice, and in a way, to me, I thought it was incredibly brave because men are power-seeking creatures by nature, and most of them are fighting their way to the throne. So the idea that someone would give up this perceived power of position for love was fascinating to me. So I was trying to uncover what I perceived to be this great romance, and in the uncovering of the story, I saw a whole other point of view. That I saw what she went through. I saw how she ran away from it. I saw how she saw the writing on the wall and knew that it was all going to go tits up. Excuse my French. It was, to me, when Wally goes to Al-Fayed's office and says, I think it's important to tell the story from her point of view, that was really the conclusion I came to at the end of all my research.
And at what point did you decide to integrate in the more modern story, the story of Wally?
Well, I think it's important to understand and accept that truth is subjective, and we all can read stories and do as much research as we want on a person, but how we interpret the story and what we take away from it is always going to be different than somebody else. So it was important. I never set out to make the quintessential, historical biopic of the abdication of Edward VIII, or the true story about what lies behind the romance of Wallis and Edward. I thought it was important to give the story a point of view and to make, remind the audience that this is the story seen through the eyes of a young woman who's searching for love and the meaning of happiness.
And you co-wrote the script with Alec Kashishian, who you've worked with before. Can you tell us a little bit, in kind of practical terms, how that process worked? Did you pass drafts between each other, or you literally wrote together? How did you do that?
We sat in a room and threatened each other if we didn't get off of our Blackberries. First of all, I had to hide his more than he had to hide mine. And we shared a computer, and I mean, It's really simple. We had the script up on a big screen and we just passed it back and forth, and we just kind of riffed off of each other, and we spent weeks together writing, and then we'd go away and we'd read the drafts, and then we'd change scenes and email them to each other, then we'd spend time together again writing, and it just went on like that for about a year and a half. Yeah. And
do you enjoy the process of writing?
I love the process of writing. It's nice because nobody butts in. You can just do it on your own.
Yeah, it always sounds very appealing. Yeah. So then, as compared with the process of filming, you had 3 countries to shoot in, and what, 100 or so locations?
3 countries. Well, 43 different locations. 83 costume changes for the Duchess. Yeah, it was a location, costume, jewelry, hair and makeup, hungry kind of a film. Yeah.
But you enjoyed the filming, or?
Yeah, I did. It was tough. I'm not going to lie. But I did enjoy it.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about is the visual style of the film, which I think is beautiful. Particularly, I wanted to ask you about your choice of cinematographer and the decision to shoot on different stocks and different gauges. Can you talk us through some of the thinking behind that?
I'm glad you're mentioning Hagen Bodansky. He's a brilliant cinematographer, and I was really lucky to have him. I love his work. He shot Young Victoria and Lives of Others, which I think are both brilliant movies. So I chose to shoot it on, the majority of the film on 35mm, and then I wanted to use the 16mm as a kind of punctuation mark in scenes when I wanted to come closer and have a sense of greater intimacy. And then the Super 8 we shot on was meant to evoke, when you see a Super 8 film, you always think it's nostalgic, and you think to yourself, well, that's a home movie. There's something really amateur about it, and user-friendly, and it brings you closer to the character, and it makes you feel like you're getting also, once again, like the letters, an insight into that character. So.
And it's a very fluid humor. Can you, again, were there kind of other films that influenced you in terms of wanting to shoot in that style, or was it just how you felt that story should be visually told?
Well, I'm a big fan of Steadicam, and I wanted the camera to have a lyricism about it, because I wanted to make the stories weave together, and the love affairs between in both the modern world and in the past to be like a dance, and so that's easier to achieve with Steadicam. One of the films that really influenced me was La Vie en Rose. There's a lot of use of Steadicam in that film, and I really admire the way that there's one scene that goes on for 5 minutes without any cut, and I tried to achieve that a few times in the movie, and I think it's bold filmmaking, because I think we're so used to watching movies with tons of edits and cuts, and so that movie influenced me, the camera work in it. And I'm also a big fan of tracking shots, and I would say that a film by Alain René called Last Year at Marienbad really influenced me as well. He did a lot of tracking shots and shooting into mirrors, and that inspired me.
I'm just thinking about the Delphine Seyrig costumes in that too.
Beautiful, yeah. Yeah.
I think we'll talk about costumes in a moment, but before that, can I ask you about the casting of the film, and particularly, I mean, obviously very pivotal who you found to play Wallis. How easy was it to find Andrea?
That was, well, getting to Andrea was a long, arduous journey. I met with a lot of actresses, a lot of really great actresses. This was really painful for me, because a lot of actresses I really wanted to work with came to meet me, and it was really hard saying no to them because they just weren't right for the part. And I had brought up Andrea's name several times, and many people frowned at me because they said she's too young, she can't play that kind of an age range, etc. And I saw her playing Margaret Thatcher, and I thought she was so brilliant, and I thought she transformed herself in that film. And so I met her, and when she walked in the room, to me, she was the Duchess. She had dressed, and in the way that the Duchess had dressed and done her hair and makeup, and her long neck, and the way she moved her hands, and her carriage, and the combination of steeliness and fragility that she had. I was thrilled, because in my head I was thinking, oh my God, I found her. So.
And just a little about working with actors. I mean, obviously you've acted yourself. Do you think that makes a difference in terms of how you interact and direct your actors?
Yes, I always appreciated working on films where the director gave me as much support and direction as possible, and gave me as much information about my character as possible. I think actors want direction. They want, even if you disagree with it, in the end, they want to know what your point of view is. So I try to be that for my actors.
And I think I would be in dereliction of duties if we didn't talk about the costumes, which are absolutely
divine.
Yes. And you worked with Ariane Phillips, again, someone who you've worked with.
Yeah, I've worked with Ariane for years and years. She's done a lot of things with me, all of my shows, and tons of videos and photo shoots, and she's done a lot of great films herself. And I think she has impeccable taste, and I had to do a lot of begging to get her to move to London for 6 months, but she did, and I was really lucky to have her. She did an amazing job.
And some of the Duchess's costumes are recreations of actual costumes that she
Yes, both V&A and Christian Dior, who designed a lot of clothes for her when she was alive, recreated a lot of the wardrobe for us. We're very grateful for that.
So are we. And then the last thing I wanted to ask you was, and I guess it will touch on some of the things that you've talked about already, really what you hope that people will take away from the film.
Well, lots of things. I mean, I think it's quite a complex story, and you can enjoy it or take it in on a lot of different levels. I think one really important point is that there is no such thing as perfect love. And if you think so, then you're in for a rude awakening. And that real love requires compromise. And the other thing is the other message or idea that I hope people come away with is that nothing is what it seems. That you could read a story or hear about somebody or know about someone or something, and there's always many sides to the story. So it pays to investigate and do your research, and before you come to a conclusion about somebody or something, make sure you've gathered as much evidence as possible.
That sounds like a great note to finish on. Congratulations on the film, and thank you so much for being here.